Try Jesus. Try Jesus. Try Jesus. Try Jesus. He's the way. Try Jesus. The truth, the life. Try Jesus.
What's up, Auburn? Pastor Crespo here with the Try Jesus Auburn podcast. Let me say to you first off, Merry Christmas. I hope that everything good, everything inspirational, everything wonderful about this holiday season, I hope that all of it is yours as we kind of finish up and wrap up this year. To me, this is my favorite time of year for several reasons. One of the reasons is I usually try to save my vacation time until this time so that, you get to end the year on a good note. I also love this time of year for what it is. I mean, listen, it doesn't matter whether you are a believer in the Bible or not. This is the time of year where even the non-believers, I know they don't understand everything, I get it, but even non-believers are open to hear about baby Jesus. And it provides an opportunity to share the gospel. It provides an opportunity to let people know exactly how much Jesus cares for them and loves them. And so I'm all for anything that has to do with Jesus, especially as it allows us to connect with people who don't normally either go to church or, maybe they're interested, but they don't really want to, sometimes they're a little bit scared of getting involved. And at the end of the day, that's what this podcast is all about. This podcast is an attempt to build a community of people who want to get to know the Bible and get to know Jesus better. That's what we're all about here at the Try Jesus Auburn podcast. Let me start by saying, like, share, subscribe. I want to invite you to be a digital missionary. What's that? What am I talking about? Well, if you are blessed by this podcast, then take the link from YouTube or Spotify, wherever you hear this, take it, copy it, and share it on your own social media feeds. Or take it, copy it, and email it to a friend that you think would enjoy listening to it. There's so much negativity out there in the world. Wouldn't it be nice to have something that's inspirational, that's encouraging? And of course, what can be more encouraging than learning about the Creator, learning about Jesus, learning about how much He truly loves us, and of course, learning He's coming back again. And all signs tell us that it's going to be real soon. All right, let's get into the content of the episode today. I'll be honest with you, what I want to share with you today was in a little bit of a different direction than I originally planned. When we think about Christmas time, when we think about this time of Jesus and his coming as a child, and yes, I get it, Jesus was not born on the 25th of December. I get that. But as we seem to focus more on that during this time of year, I thought, let me go back to the beginning. Let me go back and share a little bit about the beginnings of Jesus. But I wasn't ready for what I came across. It was just interesting, and it was encouraging to me. And I hope that this content will be encouraging to you. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. All right. What I wanted to do, I wanted to share with you I wanted to study some of the beginning words of Matthew's book with you, to look at the genealogy of Matthew. Some consider Matthew chapter 1 as it's a little bit of a boring section because it's all about who gave birth to who. They call it the begats. So, this person begat this person, and that person begat that person. And to some, it's boring. But, if you know what to look for, it can be very encouraging and inspiring. And so I went there and I said, well, I thought I knew where I was going to go, and I started looking at it. But I have to tell you, I didn't even get past the first verse. I didn't even get past the first verse of Matthew chapter 1. And I was just like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is what I want to share with you in this episode. Something really encouraging, something really neat, just out of the very first verse in the first book of the New Testament. Now, let me share that with you. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, it says this. It says, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now, how do I put this? When I read the Bible, I oftentimes try to spend some time thinking about the intent of the author. In other words, what was the purpose of the author writing what he wrote? Why did he put it this way? Why did he say this? Because, if you're writing, you can put anything down. But Matthew specifically put this down, and I thought, well, okay, let me try to understand what he's saying. So let me go back to it real quick and just share with you what I mean. Matthew starts out he tells you exactly what this book is about. Why am I writing? Well, I'm writing to you. This is a book about the generation of Jesus Christ. This is a book about the people. This is a book about Jesus and the people who lived during his time. This is a book about the story of Jesus and those people who lived at the same time as he did. The generation of Jesus, right? But then Matthew adds this section, and I'm just going to go back to it. I hate to be going back and forth, but some people are visual. He says, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now, here's the thing. The question to ask, why would Matthew put that in there? Why was it important to Matthew to let you know right at the beginning that Jesus is the son of David and Jesus is the son of Abraham? All right. Well, if you are familiar with the Jewish culture, you know that genealogy was very important to them. They wanted to know whose family you were connected to. You weren't really Jewish if you couldn't trace your bloodline back to the patriarchs. And so that's part of the reason, tracing the bloodline of Jesus. And if you read Matthew chapter 1, it shows you, this person gave birth to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And so what we see all these people having children, and then they get to the point where, Jesus comes on the scene. So yes, of course, there's the bloodline of Jesus, but there's more. Let me share with you what I'm talking about. Let's take David. Now, I want to share with you a text from 2 Samuel, I believe 2 Samuel chapter 12. Let me go there here. 2 Samuel chapter 7, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12. And allow me to give you a little bit of background first. So the Bible tells us that David was sitting in his palace one day, and he's thinking, he says, here I am in this beautiful palace. I'm finally the king of Israel. I'm sitting in this palace, but yet I think of the Ark of the Covenant. I think of God himself. It's a symbol for the presence of God. That God is living in a tent and I am living in a palace. And that's not right. We got to do something about this. And so he said in his heart, he's going to build a temple for God. Well, the story goes that the prophet there at the time, Nathan, he told the prophet what he wanted to do. Nathan says, hey, you got the green light, buddy. Go make it happen. But then God tells Nathan later on, he says, whoa, not so fast. I want you to go back to David and tell him something else. But the message that Nathan gave David afterwards had several different parts to it. Here's a section of it. I'm going to read to you now. This is now God speaking to David through the prophet. So this is the message from God to David. He says this: when your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, he's talking about when he dies. When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. Verse 13 is interesting. It says this. It says, he shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Now, let's talk a little bit about what this means. If you've ever heard of dual application, the dual application of prophecy in the Bible, it's this concept that when you read something, there's a primary meaning to it, and then there's a secondary meaning to it. Or in the case of future events, there's a primary fulfillment and a secondary fulfillment. Well, of course, you can read this, and he says, he shall, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. The one that came after David was Solomon. And Solomon did just that. He made his kingdom great. But God said to David, he says, and I will establish your kingdom forever. That part was not fulfilled by Solomon. So here we have a promise. This is the point that I want to make here. Here we have a promise. God made a promise to David that he would have an heir come after him, and his heir would establish his kingdom forever. That part was not fulfilled by his son Solomon. It had to be fulfilled by somebody else. Now, there's one promise. So God made David a promise, but God also made Abraham a promise. That's right. Let me take you there. That's going to be Genesis chapter 12. So let me go to Genesis chapter 12, and I'll bring up that text for you. In Genesis chapter 12, I believe it's verse 3. Yeah. Let me give you a little bit of background as to what's going on here. So before I get to the text, Abraham was called from a place called the Ur of the Chaldees. And Abraham traveled west from what is modern-day Iran. He traveled west from Iran and then found himself in what Israel now, in the Promised Land in Canaan. And God made all sorts of commitments and promises to Abraham if he was faithful, and Abraham was faithful. But one of the things he promised Abraham was that he would give him a child, and he promised him that he would make a great nation from him. Now, what made it interesting was that Abraham, by the time that these promises started getting more, like as God started mentioning this more and more, Abraham was old. Abraham, I believe at one time he's talking to God and he said, look, I'm 100 years old. My wife is 90. Are we really going to have children now? Seriously? That's modern day. That's a modern day recitation of the text. But basically he's having a conversation with God and he's saying, you're promising me a son. I don't see how that's going to happen. Well, God is continuing to talk to Abraham, and he says something interesting here. This is what I want to share with you. This is Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. And this is and I'm going to start I think I'll start at verse 2 in Genesis chapter 12. God speaking to Abraham says this. He says, and he's reiterating the promise. He says, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great so that you will be a blessing. And in verse 3, he says, I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So did you catch that? God made a promise to Abraham, and he said basically, look, I'm going to make a great nation from you. I am going to bless you. As a matter of fact, not only am I going to bless you, anyone who stands in your way, anyone who dares to curse you, they will be cursed. But then he says this, in his promise, he says, and through you, through your seed, all the family of the earth shall be blessed. Now, why am I sharing those two things with you? Let's go back. This is what I was looking at, the very first verse of Matthew chapter 1, and it just jumped out at me because what is the intention of Matthew? Why did Matthew write this book in the first place? What is his point? Well, his point is this. He says, what I'm writing here to you is a story of Jesus and the people that lived and interacted with him when he was on the earth. This is a book of the generation of Jesus Christ. Jesus is the son of David, and he's the son of Abraham. What he's saying, what Matthew is saying, is he's saying Jesus is the fulfillment of the promise to David, and he's also the fulfillment of the promise to Abraham. Oh, my friend. What amazing, powerful stuff. Jesus is the one who is foretold to establish the kingdom of God and the kingdom of David as well forever. Jesus is the one foretold through whom all the families of the earth would be blessed. You see, when Jesus entered the scene of history as this little babe wrapped in swaddling cloths, he wasn't just a good teacher. He wasn't just a good man. He wasn't just somebody that's kind and had a lot of wisdom. No. Jesus is and was much more than that. Jesus blessed all the families of the earth with his teachings and also with his death. Jesus established the throne that will last forever by dying for the sins of mankind, vindicating God before all who are paying attention, and turning the claims of Lucifer on its head. Jesus is the fulfillment of the promise to David, and he's the fulfillment of the promise to Abraham. That one verse in Matthew is very powerful. Why are you writing this book, Matthew? What is the purpose? Why are we here? Why am I even looking at this thing that you've written? He says, this is very simply a story of Jesus, the man who is the fulfillment of the promises to both David and Abraham. No one else on earth, no one else on this planet, As a matter of fact, no one else in this universe can be that but him. As you go into this holiday season, I would love for you to focus on Jesus. I would love for you to spend some time. Yes, you can go to your company party. You can hang out with people, show them appreciation, give gifts to one another. You can send me a gift too. I'm not going to say no. But there's something much more important than that. This is a perfect time to focus on the answer to the promises to both David and Abraham. And you know what? He's the answer to the promise that God has made you and I. God promised to save us from sin. God promised to make us at one with him again. And he did that through Jesus. My friend, I hope you enjoyed this holiday season. Enjoy it, and just take the time to appreciate what God has given to you, what you have in your life, the people. But more than anything else, appreciate the fulfillment of the promise that God made to create an everlasting kingdom and to bless all the families of the earth, which includes your family too. Thank you for joining me for this episode. God bless you, and we will see you next time.